For as long as sport has existed, there's also been gambling on the outcomes of that sport. And when there's money at stake, there's also been those looking to manipulate the outcomes for financial gain. Pretty much every sport at some point in their history has had a match fixing scandal. But what about table tennis in 2024? Does table tennis have a match fixing problem? In this video, I will conclude that at the elite level, we can largely be confident as fans that what we are watching is genuine. However, at the fringes of the sport, table tennis is actually highly vulnerable to match fixing, and there is a danger that this could spread throughout the game and impact the reputation and integrity of table tennis as a whole. If you go to a betting website and click on table tennis, you'll be surprised at the sheer number of table tennis matches that you can actually bet on. Literally hundreds and hundreds of matches every day. But when you scroll through the matches, even the most knowledgeable table tennis fan will struggle to recognise any of the names of the players, let alone the names of the tournaments being played in. The Moscow Liga Pro, the TT Cup Estonia, the Pro League Czech Republic, the Masters Belarus. If you do a bit of digging, you'll find that all of these leagues are actually streamed online and you can watch all of the matches. But if you were expecting to see professional looking table tennis in the Moscow Liga Pro, for example, you might be slightly confused by what you see. What you may find is grainy footage of usually two aging, probably overweight players in a small room with no crowd, playing some very average table tennis to say the least. These are not like any professional table tennis players you may have ever seen before. World table tennis, this certainly isn't. And many of the other leagues feature similar levels of less than elite table tennis. The vast majority of these leagues are hosted in Eastern Europe, but not exclusively. I've also come across similar setups in Spain and in China. The low quality table tennis can actually produce some pretty hilarious results at times. Check out John Milos' TT Liga Pro channel for some good examples of this. Surely these can't really be professional table tennis players. So what's this all about? These leagues and tournaments have been created to feed the world's insatiable appetite for sports betting. These tournaments run 24/7, 365 days a year. Not even a global pandemic can stop the play. These tournaments became particularly popular amongst gamblers during the COVID pandemic when most other sports stopped completely. Not even the threat of war can stop the matches from being played. In this extraordinary footage from the SetKa Cup, which was played in Kharkiv in Ukraine, you hear a loud bang and then the camera shakes as the result of the Russian bombardment of the city in September 2022. After a brief break, the play simply continues. Time is, after all, money, and the gambling industry needs its data. Some of the table tennis played in these tournaments is, well, interesting, and it's got a lot of people asking, is what they're watching legitimate? Are the players always giving their all to win? In September 2023, former Australian table tennis player Adam Green was convicted for using corrupt information to bet on table tennis matches held in Ukraine. Green placed bets on behalf of his associates in Ukraine, and on the fixed matches, in total Green won 473,000 Australian dollars from 1,170 bets placed over 7 months in 2020. Adam Green pleaded guilty and has been pretty open about the affair since his conviction. The conviction has taken a pretty heavy toll on him personally. It's unclear exactly which players were match fixing or which leagues they were playing in, but the Adam Green case is not the only time these leagues have had their legitimacy questioned. In July 2020, New Jersey regulators banned betting on the SetKa Cup, the Win Cup and the TT Cup, and banned all betting on 6 named players in particular, regardless of the league they are playing in, due to intelligence that these players are match fixing. And in September 2023, as a result of work by Spanish police and Interpol, 23 people were arrested for corrupting athletes, including table tennis players. It's not to say that all of the matches in these leagues are corrupt. Indeed, the leagues themselves are keen to stress the measures they take to ensure the legitimacy of the matches, such as suspending players accused of match fixing. And not all of the leagues are of similar low quality. The TT Star Series in Czechia, for example, showcases some decent table tennis. It wouldn't be fair to tarnish all of the leagues with the same brush. And it's in the interest of the leagues to at least keep up the facade of legitimacy, as they could face suspension by regulators or get their leagues removed from online betting sites. At the moment, these leagues have very little to do with world table tennis and the world of Ma Long or Felix Lebrun, and I've absolutely no doubt that table tennis at the very elite level is clean of match fixing. But there is a danger of contagion from the windowless halls of Kharkiv or Moscow. The reason these tournaments are table tennis and not other sports is simply that setting up a table tennis tournament is cheaper and easier than most other sports. Table tennis needs very little space and very few players. Players can also play multiple matches in a day, which is also not possible in many other sports. In creating things that people can bet on, table tennis is highly efficient. With low quality players and very little prize money at stake, the incentives for victory are less and the temptation to take money from match fixers is high. Joachim Petter is unlikely to ever reach the top of the sport. No offence, Joachim, whoever you are. Getting banned from table tennis for match fixing is not really going to be much of a punishment. No matter how hard these leagues try to stay clear of match fixing, it seems it will be very hard to keep a track and monitor all of their players. The corrupted players who play in these leagues probably play in local table tennis clubs as well, where there may be impressionable youngsters with the potential to actually do something in table tennis. It may seem harmless if there's a little match fixing in some inconsequential Eastern European tournament, but it starts to introduce dodgy characters and dodgy behaviours into the sport, and this could harm the reputation of table tennis. Would parents want their kids to be involved in a sport full of dodginess? What could ultimately happen is that many of these leagues will get removed from the books of betting companies unless they start to become more like proper professional leagues and not just pro in name. This could start to bring in players closer to that elite level, or young players making their way in the game who may one day end up in that elite level. My main concern about all of these leagues is that it's exposed table tennis, or a part of the table tennis pyramid, to a potentially dodgy element of society and a dodgy element of sport. And it's very hard for the ITTF and local federations to manage all of this. There's literally dozens of leagues around the world, and it's not always clear who owns them, who runs them. And we've gone from a situation where there was maybe a few hundred professional table tennis players in the world that the ITTF could monitor, look after their welfare, to a situation where there's thousands of players playing in these leagues who the ITTF knows very little about, can't keep in contact with them, and we can now bet on them, and that makes them really open to corruption and approaches from criminal elements. Whilst most of these players are a million miles from world table tennis, in the future we may well see some players who've come through that system and they've been exposed to this potentially corrupt world. So the ITTF has got a real challenge on its hands here, trying to keep a lid on this situation. They're going to need the help of local federations. So in Ukraine, the Ukrainian Table Tennis Federation has previously suspended the TT Cup and the SetKa Cup, although this was for COVID violations, and they suspended players because of this. However, these tournaments still do continue. I think key will be managing player welfare. World table tennis, the professional table tennis scene, particularly for the players on the lower rungs of that, might be quite a lonely world. Traveling the world, competition to competition, staying in hotels away from family and friends, and maybe not making that much prize money, just enough to maybe cover their expenses. So that makes them highly vulnerable to approaches from corrupting criminals. And maybe these are people they met coming up through these dodgy leagues in the past. Just to be very clear though, I don't believe there's much match fixing going on in ITTF events or world table tennis at present. My concerns is just about seepage from this slightly toxic world of these pro leagues. Anyways, it's an interesting subject. It'd be nice to know what your thoughts are, whether on betting on table tennis or match fixing or whatever it may be. Let me know. Cheers.